Hello and welcome. So today I wanted to do a little video just around my recorders and the portable recorders I've got, and I'll do a separate one on sort of external microphones that I'm using and why I'm using them. But this is really to focus on the portable recorder side because I have had questions as to what I use. So I thought, well, instead of sort of reeling it off in a list and all that, let's just do a video. So we'll start off with, I've got quite a collection here, and this has actually been cut down quite a bit. I've sold off quite a few of them because it was getting ridiculous, but there's still quite a few. So I'll start off with the OM System LSP2, which is one of my favourites. And it's an old one, but it's great to have as a backup. It's reliable. It's got a sort of metal feel to it, which is quite good. Handling noise can be managed quite well. You can handhold it if you're careful. And it's a thing of beauty, really. It's good to have as a backup. And because I got it so cheap off, I think, Reverb, I don't mind leaving it out in a field with some external mics plugged into it, or in a forest or a jungle. I mean, there's no jungles on my doorstep, unfortunately, but if I had the opportunity to dump it in a jungle, this might be the one I would choose because I'm not too concerned if it gets stolen or damaged. So yeah, it's a great little recorder, and I'm kind of using it as a dictaphone more than anything these days for sort of voice notes and ideas and things like that. It's got 3 mics in it, which is great. It's got I think they call it the Tresmic design, which allows for a bit of zoomage, so you can kind of zoom the stereo field in on the sound, which can be quite useful. However, not as effective as, say, a shotgun mic, but it does a good job. So that is the Olympus LSP2. I did have the LSP5 until recently, but the LSP5 and the Sony A10 are pretty similar. I'll come on to this one in a bit, but because they're so similar, I opted to keep the Sony A10 over the LSP5 just purely because this was my first one of this size and I loved it. So, and I think the sound quality between the two, between the A10 and the LSP5, is slightly goes to the Sony A10, even though the P5 has the 3 mics in it and the Sony only has the 2. They just seem better quality. So that was the Olympus LSP2. Great recorder. So we'll move on to the Roland R-5. It's one of my favourite recorders, and I love this because it's got a metal body. It feels nice in your hand. It's good as well because you can sort of do a bit of stealth recording. If you're in a pub or a cafe and you want to get the ambience, it doesn't look like a recording device. And what I mean by that is, for example, if you were holding the Tascam X6, which I'll come on to in a bit, people will notice the microphones and it changes the whole dynamic. People act differently, they change their their mannerisms change, the behaviour changes, and you don't want that when you're recording sort of stealth recordings. You want something that can be very inconspicuous and can capture the sound as it's meant to be, as it is naturally. And the Roland R-5 is great for that. I did have the Roland R-7 at one point, but I couldn't get big hands, and they've got like a micro SD instead of a full-sized SD, and I actually broke the door on it. And yeah, that's why I no longer have it. This is a full-sized SD. It's just easier to take it in and out, and I don't know if there's much difference in terms of sound quality between the R-5 and the R-7. I didn't really notice anything. So this, of the two, I chose the older over the newer model. Sort of similar really to the LSP2 because it's, that's metal. This has got a bit of metal in it, and they just feel very robust. Whereas the newer ones are plastic and don't feel as robust, but the R-7 is still a sensational recorder, and I keep getting them and then getting rid of them, and maybe one day I'll get one and keep one. I don't know. Anyway, on to the next one, which is one of my favourites, is the Sony D-50. Now, I found this used, you know, these are discontinued. I found this used recently on eBay, and I just got it. I didn't even think twice about it. I was like, I'm getting that, I'm having that, because I'd love a Sony D100. Obviously, it has, the Sony D100 has a amazing sort of legendary status, and I'm sure it is an amazing recorder, but you know, the D50 was kind of the closest I could get without sort of spending loads of money on those Sony D100s. They go for a lot, and this is, you know, nice to hold in your hand. It's got a good weight to it. It's built really well, which is something that I think Sony maybe don't do as well on the newer recorders, like the A10 and the D10. But yeah, God, really good build, and I love this thing. The sound is sensational, and it's one of my favourites. The only downside to this one that it's not really a downside, it's more of just a little gripe, is that it's sort of a Pro Duo something or other in here, so you kind of have to have like an adapter, so you can use, you know, a standard micro SD card. You have to use an adapter because it's old. I think Sony were trying out a system of, you know, their own sort of SD card things, but it's amazing. And you know, maybe one day I will get my hands on the D100 at a price that, you know, is reasonable. I always keep hoping that I will stumble upon one in like a charity shop where they're not really sure what it's worth, and you know, I don't know, pick it up for like 30 quid rather than 1,000. That would be sensational. Probably unlikely, but yeah, that is the Sony D50. Amazing recorder. The Zoom F3. This is one of my favourites, and it's great. The only downside, the only niggle I have with the Zoom F3 is the battery life is really poor on AA's, so you always kind of have to bear that in mind and take a power bank with you when you're using it. Obviously, no inbuilt microphones, but that's great. As I've kind of developed, I have got a lot more external microphones that I can use with this, and it's a good size, really good size. Great for drop rigs, I imagine. I haven't used it in a drop rig so far because I still love it so much I daren't leave it out somewhere, but I'm sure that will change and I'll get a bit more confident with that, and we'll get it plonked somewhere and get some birds, dawn chorus, all that beautiful stuff. I've got the Bluetooth adapter thing as well, and I mean, that's a slight niggle of mine, is that it kind of pokes out of the shell, you know, just my OCD, it just drives me a little bit bonkers. But to be fair, I don't use the Bluetooth that much at all, but it's nice to be able to monitor it on your phone and, you know, change various things while you're recording, try different things. So Zoom F3 is great. And you know, the beauty of it as well is that you can plug so many different things into this. So many different mics, you know, mono, stereo, there's so many possibilities, and it's taken me a while to get that, but I took the leap and I'm very glad that I did. It's very low noise, self noise as well, which is great. Let's move on to another Sony actually, which is the Sony M10, which recently kind of, well, in the last few months sort of went under the sea for a split second, and it's been very touch and go actually for a while. I took it apart, I did a lot of cleaning inside to make sure there was no ocean salt and stuff in there, and yeah, it's back. Basically, Alan, who does the SR3D microphones, which I think if I scoot over, you can see one over here, just in shot. and he does these sort of binaural microphone kits, which are bloody sensational, which I will cover in the external microphone thing. But yeah, took this to him. We basically replaced the EM172 microphones that were in here with the EM272, which are the predecessors to the 172s, and it works beautifully. It works just as well as it ever has. And again, similar, you know, similar to the R-5, similar size, great for stealth recording, because you just have and no one bats an eyelid. You can't even tell. You know, no one knows that there's microphones in this. No one knows it's a recording device, and that's kind of the perk of these two. The handling noise is pretty good on both of them, I have to say. You can handhold this. You have to be careful, obviously. You can't just, you know, go like that. It will pick up that movement. But, you know, if you rest it in your hand, there's a bit of an art to it, and you have to develop it. You can sort of handhold all these recorders if you're very careful. You have to be, some are worse than others for handling noise, and this is a really good one, very forgiving. That's another good one, that's very forgiving. And the Sony D-50 I've found in particular, that's also very forgiving. Look, it's daddy and son. So yeah, this is called Sony, actually. They've all got names, but yeah, this is Sony, and it's one of my favourites. And great recorder, just really good. If you can get your hands on them, again, it's one of those that's discontinued and it's quite hard to get hold of, but if you can get your hands on one, just totally recommend it. They're great. On to the newer Sony, which is the A10. Very nice. I love the size of it. You know, it's plastic though. Bit of a downside there. Hand holding can be a bit, I don't know. It's probably worth using, you know, something like this, really. A sort of tripod with a shock mount on the top and having it on there like that. It reduces the sort of handling noise quite considerably. But it's a great recorder. It's one that you can just throw in your pocket. You can throw it in your bag. I wouldn't advise throwing it in your pocket because this has fallen out of my pocket before in the field, and then I've had to go looking for it. And as you can imagine, in a field, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. But I found it again, luckily. And, you know, it's great. Inbuilt mics are good. There's a lot of options with external mics as well. And obviously you've got, you know, you can reposition them as you can with the Sony D-50 as well. You can kind of reposition them. I try not to do that too much though, because I always worry about the strain on the wires, and, you know, for longevity's purpose, if you can keep them in one position, I think that would probably be helpful. But yeah, Sony A10's great. I love it. I love how, you know, the size of it. You can use, it's got built-in Bluetooth. That's another pro, really big pro, because you can monitor it. You can check your levels, you can change your levels on your phone, and I've never had any issues with connectivity or any issues like that with the app either. So it's really good, really reliable, and it's a really robust unit. I just don't think that the sound quality is as amazing as the older ones. But in the right circumstances, you know, recording trains, traffic passing, things like that, you can get some amazing results with it. So that is the A10, one of my favourites, that one. The Zoom H1 Essential, one of the sort of newer models that are out there. This is one of my favourites, this. It's a 32-bit sort of mini recorder. I don't know if there's any others out there that are actually kind of 32-bit and tiny like this, but I have used this in drop rigs by leaving it out in the forest with some clippy mics plugged into it, and got some amazing, stunning results when the birds start waking up. Obviously, because it's 32-bit, you don't have to worry so much about clipping, and you can kind of mess with the audio in post and change the levels, maybe layer those sounds up so it sounds even more immersive. The inbuilt mics are pretty good. I've done a video on that where I took it out and just kind of recorded things, and it's good. It's a really good, and for the price, you will not get, I don't think, a better spec recorder. Now, the self-noise, and by that I mean by the sort of mic and the preamp combination, the self-noise is not great. If you were, you know, I don't know, doing a whispery thing, like an ASMR thing, might not be the best for that, because, you know, you boost that signal and that self-noise goes climbing up with it. You need something really, really sensitive for something like ASMR. But it's great. I love it. It's one of my favourites. And great. Good battery life, actually, as well. Even though it's two AAAs, the batteries can last quite a while. But, you know, there's always the option of power banks. And I do tend to use power banks wherever possible for just the purposes of reliability when I'm out recording. And the final one, the last one of the lot, the Tascam Portacapture X6. Now this is great. It's I had the Tascam DR100 Mark III, which I think was like the predecessor to this one, and the DR100 Mark III was built better than this. It's, you know, it's plasticky, it's quite flimsy, the mics feel plasticky. It doesn't have the best feel in the world, but it's great. It's got so much functionality. There's different like apps on it. It's touch screen, which is different. Took a bit of getting used to, but you know, different apps you can scroll through. Microphones you can swivel and reposition. I would definitely recommend getting a case if you're taking it out and about somewhere, because it's not the most robust in the world. Although I have to say, I was recording at a waterfall and there was all these jagged rocks down below, and something failed on my tripod and this just went straight onto the rocks, very sharp, very jagged, bash, straight like that. And I thought that, I was like, that is it. That is the end of the life. That's the end of the road for the X6. I was totally wrong. Not even a scratch, not a dent. You know, everything worked perfectly. No cracks. It's not even come loose at the sides or anything like that. It might have been a fluke. It might have just been a complete miracle that it didn't fall to pieces. But I was really surprised at that. And I thought maybe this is a little bit more robust than I thought it was. But this is great. Hand holding, not good. You know, so much handling noise, even if you're being careful. You get, you know, vibrational noises from your hands and all sorts. It's definitely a shock mount situation, and it's just really, yeah, you know, you've got your XLR inputs, you've got your external mic input, you know, your plug-in power, your phantom power. It's got all sorts, and it's one of my favourites, to be honest. And yeah, similar to the F3 actually, I've got a Bluetooth thing here, which you can use then to sort of use your phone for monitoring, changing things, etc. Don't use it that often. It's nice to have it there. I just wish it was a bit more flush with, you might not be able to see it, but I just wish it was a little bit more flush with the design rather than poking out. Again, slightly irritating, but it's great. Micro SD is quite easy to get in and out as well, which is nice because, you know, I have big fingers and I struggled with that with the R07. And battery life. I've used different batteries and I have struggled with the battery life. I don't know if it's just this unit in particular, but, you know, on AA's, 4AA's, it's a bit, I don't know, it never shows that it has full power. It's bizarre. So I just, again, power bank, use the power bank magic. And that is all of the recorders that I have and own in terms of handheld and portable ones. I've had many more in the past. I've had loads, the Zoom H5, the Zoom H3 VR, the Roland R-5. I've just used so many of them to try and find the perfect one. And what I found is actually there is no perfect recorder because they're all good in different scenarios and different capacities. And that's why, unfortunately, I have to have so many until someone comes and blows the world's mind with a new Sony D-100 with those quiet preamps, you know, with built-in Bluetooth, 32-bit, just everything you could imagine. You know, really, you know, metal on the outside as well, so it gives it a bit of weight. It feels robust. It's well built. These are the things we want from a handheld, but you know, if you could merge everything together into one, you would have a beautiful, beautiful product. So if anyone out there is watching, you know, with any sort of ideas and abilities to make these, then, you know, what the people want is something that sort of combines all the aspects of all these recorders, really, puts them into one beautiful handheld, beautifully designed, beautifully made, beautiful specs, great, you know, capsules, amazing preamps. Maybe people are expecting too much. Maybe I want too much. I don't know. But if we had something like that, you could blow all this competition out of the water completely. And I think people would pay really good money for something like that. Really good money. I would rather pay a lot of money for one recorder that is handheld and sensational than a lot of money on a collection that all have different use cases and things like that, you know. So there we go. Those are my handy handheld recorders. I'd say handy, not really handheld. Try and avoid handheld where possible. It's always best to try and avoid hand holding them if you can, but like I say, some are a bit more forgiving than others. So that's been me waffling about my favourite subject, and hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully, you know, you learned something. Hopefully it was insightful to you or useful in some capacity. And if you have any questions, just leave them in the comment section. I always try and respond to everyone. If I don't know the answer, I might do a bit of research and come back to you with a link and say, oh, this might be helpful for you for what you're looking for. I'm not I'm not an expert on audio. I just have an obsession with it, and I've been producing music for a long, long time, so I have good ears. It's about the only thing on me that works really well these days. I have bat ears, so it's a superpower. It is, and just let me know. Just let me know any thoughts, anything you want to know. Ask away, and I'm all yours. And until next time, the next video where we'll be looking at external microphones, take care of yourselves and bye bye for now.